Hello everybody, my name is Michaela and welcome to my channel. I seriously never post, so follow me if you want or don't. I really don't care, I'm not one of those people. So let's just jump into it. I have just received acceptances for speech language pathology graduate school. I'm a senior right now in my undergrad, and there's not a ton of videos, as I'm sure that you've noticed, on YouTube about this field in general, and especially going to grad school, which is like the biggest hump for us in this field. You know, it's not getting a job, it's getting to grad school is the hurdle. When I was going through this process, I asked a lot of people who had like either done it themselves or, you know, people at my undergrad and stuff, and people would give me, I guess, advice. But now going through the process myself, there's so many things I wish I would have known. So I'm gonna hopefully share that with you guys, and hopefully you find this helpful. So let's just get started, because I hate when intros are super long. So I have this list because I'm not an official YouTuber. I can't just remember things. Okay. So first off, grad school is super hard to get into, but not impossible. I'll share with you where I got in, because I don't like when people are like ambiguous about it. I'm like, just tell me where you got in, like tell me where you didn't, whatever. So I will tell you, I applied to 12 schools, and I actually got into way more than I thought I would. So hopefully this is encouraging. So let's see, I got accepted at Lamar University, Pace University, Northern Colorado, St. Louis University, and University of Mississippi. And then I got waitlisted for George Washington, Texas State, Minnesota, Mankato, and Rhode Island. And then I got rejected from Arkansas, University of Arkansas, and University of Nevada, Reno. And then I have still yet to hear from Western Michigan, which is one I applied to. So I ended up getting into 5, waitlisted for 4, and only rejected from 2. So hopefully that's really encouraging. So it is possible. So let's get into how I got there. Obviously I did something sort of right. Okay. So I guess I'll start with the GRE. Ooh, I despise this test. I hate it. It's terrible. If you're like me and you hate standardized tests, I'm sorry. This will be the death of you, but you can make it through. I would really just study how the test works first before you start studying the material, because there's a lot of things, like they'll do like trap answers, like they'll do like an answer that you would think, and then they do an answer that's straight out from the text, but that's like never the answer, and then they do so there's like certain things, and when you've done so many practice problems, you start to pick up on those things. So I wish I just would have known that before, so I could start practicing correctly, if that makes sense. So I mean, there's different resources. You can just literally Google like different hacks, go on YouTube, and whatnot. And I would learn how to do that first. So do that in the summer of your junior year, and then throughout the year, if you can really just get a head start on it. As far as taking like a practice test or whatever, you can definitely buy books. The book that I loved the most was one I got like right before I took the test, maybe like 2 weeks before, and I ended up taking it my senior year fall, which I don't recommend. And I got the Manhattan Prep, and it was just like a giant study book of questions. It was like 100 study questions or practice tests or something, and I would get that one. I wish I would have gotten that one way at the beginning, because I think that one helps the best. So shout out to Manhattan Prep. It's like a giant book, it's like 5 pounds. Also, vocab is huge, but I would do that in moderation. So what I did is I just did flashcards like a few nights before bed, although I did slack off on it, but I would do that because there's so many words, and it's so frustrating because when you do the reading section of the GRE, it's like, or like I guess the writing section, you have to fill in the blank. And it's like, if you don't know 2 of the words in the question, and then like you also don't know like 3 of the 5 multiple choice ones, like there's no possible way you can answer the question and get it right because you don't know any of the words. So vocab is huge. But that being said, I studied so many vocab words, and when I actually took it, I didn't even see one, or maybe I saw 1. So that is definitely disheartening. So just kind of, you balance that the way you feel like you want to, but flashcards is the easiest, and if you continue to do them, you will remember them. Just like do them before bed or whatever. So I was watching YouTube videos before, and I was told that taking the real test, like kind of like as a blank slate, going in, paying the $200, taking the test, just to see where you're at, could be good. So that's what I did. I feel like for me, I wanted that. I wanted to know like what it felt like, because you can't have things in the room. I wanted to see like just the vibe. So that's what I did. You do get your scores right after, and I did terrible. And I wouldn't say I regret it, but I wouldn't say I recommend doing that either. I think I definitely could have gotten a realistic score estimation by just doing the free ones that ETS offers. They offer, I think, 2 free ones. You just go on their website and they are realistic because they are from years past. So I would just do that and see what you're at versus paying the $200 right off the bat, just as a baseline. I did not take my real one, so I took that one the summer of my senior year, so a little later, but I thought I was on top of it, so I took that in the summer. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna dedicate all summer to graduating, like going in my senior year, like, you know, I don't want to be swamped with this during my school year, like I'm just gonna do it. And I thought I did. I had to keep postponing my tests because I didn't feel ready, and then I ended up postponing it for like October. So I'm like, great, now I'm gonna be back in college, like in school, like having to now still study for the GRE, now start my applications and do my schoolwork. So that was a lot. I don't recommend doing that. If you can, study at least your senior year, summer, dedicate it to that, and take it in August right before you leave for school. Because once you have that off your chest, that is a huge burden, like lifted off. And once you know your score, that really helps kind of narrow down what schools to actually apply to. So I'll just be upfront and say my scores were really bad, and I'll just tell you them. I got a 149 on the the reading section, and then a 148 on the math, so like not great. And then on my writing section I actually got a 5, and that's something I practiced a lot, and once I kind of knew the trick and how the GRE wanted it, like boom, I just did it and I ended up getting a 5 out of 6, so that was really nice. But that being said, my other scores weren't great. Like I wanted to be in like at least the 150s, and I know that, but my GPA kind of like helps balance it out. I think I have a 3.8. So whatever, take what you will from that information, but just do your best. Like I said, I got into 5 schools with those scores. So it's not impossible, but like I said, once it's off your plate, you can really just focus on your applications your senior year, and that'll help a lot. So going into applications, definitely use ASHA EdFind. I'm sure you know what that is by now. And for me, I wanted to go, like I didn't really care where I went to school. I was like, sure, I'll go all over. So I applied literally all over. I'm from California, but I didn't necessarily want to stay here. I was like so overwhelmed. I'm like, how the heck do I pick a school if I really don't care? Like, you know, I'm like, well, whoever will take me, I'll just go. So definitely location. People told me like, where do you see yourself living? Where do you see yourself wanting to explore? But what I ultimately did is I like just memorized that website like the back of my hand. I could tell you literally every school in New York, every school in like Utah or whatever. So just do your homework and do your research. And I was literally like insane about it. Like I kind of like hyper focused, but that really helps me because I knew so many schools, and I applied to kind of random ones that like other normal people didn't even know existed. So when you're looking at schools, be realistic as far as your GRE, and then if you know your GPA, or your GPA, and if you know your GRE, or guesstimate what your GRE you think will be based on your practice tests. And obviously on the EdFind, it shows you what their average GRE score is, and literally that's the first thing I would look at because I knew that mine wasn't great. So I would go, I'd see if it was like a 150, that was like, sure, realistic. But if it was in the 140s, and I was like, boom. It was 155, heck no, I just exited out. And you know, maybe I could have gotten into those schools, but for me, I wanted to be realistic because I knew I did not want to take a year off. Like I wanted to go to grad school. So yeah, so I would definitely look at those things. Other things you can look at is their average GPA, financial assistance, like how many people get aid out of their admitted students. So if there's like only 3, then that probably means they only offer GA positions, which are really hard to get. But if there's like 15, then they probably have other scholarships for grad students. They all see if they have specialty tracks. Obviously, if you're interested in something specific, I personally wasn't, so I didn't really look for that. Same with research. I didn't really care about research, so I didn't really look into that. And also semesters, that was kind of big for me. Some schools are like 7 semesters and some are as short as 5. So that was kind of like a pro for me, you know, as far as applying to the school if they were only 5 semesters. And then also cohort size too. If you know you want a larger cohort versus a smaller one. And then also I did the percentage for how many people get in. So they tell you how many applications they have and how many people were admitted. And I did that for all of them and charted them. And I mean, I think the most rigorous school that I applied to was either like GW or Northern Colorado, and that was like a 30% acceptance rate. But to be honest, for grad school, that was like pretty normal or high. Anything below that, I would say, is definitely really competitive, but just see for that. Like I know like Cal State Long Beach is like 7%. So I don't know how accurate those numbers are, but it's a good way to at least kind of guess what your chances are. Yeah, I would do all of this again, either summer of your senior year, or I definitely still researched into my fall. So then let me talk about, so now the fall of your senior year. So whether you've taken the GRE or not, either keep studying or whatever. And so once you kind of have narrowed down how many schools you want to apply to, I would say apply to as many as you can financially. I spent so much money applying, but again, for me, it was worth it. So, you know, the sky's the limit. Apply to 20 if you want. Like I applied a lot and it was overwhelming, but I also tacked some on at the end. So after Christmas, some of the applications were still open and I was like not overwhelmed anymore. And I added like 3 schools on at the last minute because their application deadlines were later. So that's always an option too. Maybe apply to like 6. And then if you have time later, apply to a few more. You can do that. Anyways, so the fall of your senior year, the essays, I would definitely treat them like homework. So like work on them every day, and that I found that to really help. Also, I didn't really know what a letter of intent was. And I guess a normal letter of intent is literally just why you're going into the field, a brief thing of like kind of what shaped you going into the field. But like, so if you have an idea, you can totally start writing about that over summer. But like I said, I started, you know, in September or whatever. And I'll say definitely some schools, they'll just have you submit it and there's no prompt. So if that's the case, you write your story, and they definitely want something creative. So like for me, I wrote about how I had personal experience with stuttering, so that might have helped me a bit. And then I talked about how I went into musical theater and singing and stuff, and how that helped me overcome my stutter, and then how I worked at an internship and worked with the boy who stuttered and yada yada yada. And at the end paragraph, I would put something specific kind of about their school. I would say like, and I know that George Washington could help me, yada yada yada. And then that kind of makes it specific to them. So some schools just want that essay. Some schools want like a why them, like why Texas State, why George Washington. And so that's when you really want to go and research their whole department, and without being like a suck up, like mention things about it, you know, and that makes them know that you're interested and that you did your research on their school and all that good stuff. Some schools don't have full-on essays. Instead, they'll just have like mini questions. So like I think for Northern Colorado, I didn't even have a personal statement or anything. It was just those mini questions, which is kind of worse in a way, because you're like, how are they like basing who I am off these mini questions? But I honestly don't know how it works. But for those, I would definitely say just make yourself well-rounded. So there would be like, how do you handle feedback, you know, criticism, whatever. And so for me, I was like, oh, like I'm a college athlete, I'm used to that because of blah blah blah, and I kind of expanded on how I'm an athlete. And then another one was like, how do you feel about working with multicultural people and why is that important? And then I like threw in, well, I studied abroad and blah blah blah. So I would say just answer each question with a different realm of your life if you can, to show them that you're like well-rounded. Because there was like 3 of them and I could have used my athletics for all of them, but I really pushed myself to do a different experience of my life, and I think that's what really helped. And I got like accepted into all of the schools that I did those mini questions for. Also with those essays, definitely proofread, reread a million times. Like use Grammarly, and then use maybe a different website. And then if you can afford some pro essay people, do that. I did that at the very beginning of my essays when I had my major thought, and they helped me craft it. And then I revised it a ton of times after that. I also had my friends, or I had like 2 friends in particular, and I would send it to them, and they would make their critiques, and then, you know, from there, because obviously someone else reading it is getting different vibes than what you tried to say. So I would just really encourage you to do that, whether it's a parent or a friend who maybe isn't as busy as you are. Like, please just have them. I even offered to pay my friends. If you have like an English major friend, like have them do it. And with these essays too, you really want to just be straight to the point. Like, don't fluff it all up. Like my like general statement of purpose was barely over a single space, like a page and like this little bit. I'm reading these probably so fast, which sucks because you put in a lot of work. But like, if I didn't get to that, I had a stutter and musical theater helped me overcome it. If I didn't get to that till like the middle of the page or like the end of the page, like they wouldn't probably have even read it, and they would have just skipped me and I wouldn't have gone in. So like, just be straight to the point. Another thing to really work on during this fall time is your resume. And I did a CV resume, which is I don't really know what it stands for, something fancy. And that pretty much is just like, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. A CV kind of just means you can like elaborate as much as you want. So that's what I did. So I started with my education and then all the clubs I'm in and all the study abroad and experiences I've had. And under each header, I bullet pointed maybe like 8 bullet points on what I did in that club. And with that, you really want to make sure that you're sounding like fancy and adulty, and you want to make sure that you're using different verbs for everyone if you can. And then you don't want to repeat any clubs too, because there was a few that I had crossover. I'm like, oh, well, my sorority does community service, but also I, you know, was this position, which was a leadership position. So do I put it under my leadership or do I put it under my community service? And for me, how I decided that was just like where did I have the least? So like for me, I think I had the least under community service, or I don't really know. But then I put it under that one, so it made it look more evenly spread out. And another thing is to proofread that, because I started doing that toward the end of the application processes, whatever. And I made some mistakes that sucked. For instance, I spelt Nishla wrong. Yeah. I spelt Nishla wrong, the acronym. I like switched up the letters. Don't do that. But that also being said, if you can work it out, my advice to you would be apply to the schools you're least interested in first. So that if you make those mistakes, you're not as like worried about it. Like for me, I didn't know this at the time, but like Texas was one of my top, and I had sent it to Texas. I was like, crap, like why couldn't I have sent it to, you know, whatever. And so if you know already ahead of time, maybe work on those applications first, so that if you do make a mistake like I did, you can catch it and revise it for the other applications. Also, letters of recommendation. I don't know a ton of my professors super personally, so this was kind of tough, but I just sent like my CV that I was working on. I was just like, hey, like it's not finished yet, but these are the general things I've done. Like send that to them so they know who you are, and hopefully they can make more of a personal one. And most of them want academic like ones, because I would say they want 3, and they say at least 2 of the 3. I just put up a 4. 2 of the 3 need to be academic, but I would say just make 3 of the 3 academic, all of them academic. Even if you think maybe it might be a little stronger from another outside source, like a coach, I wouldn't even do it, because they want to see you in the academic setting. And that's what all my professors told me. They're like, no, you really want academic ones. So I took their advice. Like I said, it like kind of worked out. Some schools let you submit like 4, and then if that's the case, then have your coach, or I had like my clinic advisor thingy from my internship. I had her do one, but only when it was needed. And that was a kind of tough decision for me. But as long as you give your professors like plenty of notice and like give them your resume and get on their good side in the fall or something, they should write you a good one. And then it'll just be a double whammy, because they'll also be your professor, which always looks good. And then for all of these, I would definitely finish before Christmas break or winter break if you can, because that just takes the load off, and then you can relax. Also, transcripts is a huge thing. Boy, I could do a whole video on how to do your transcripts. It's like really confusing, and you just got to jump on it early, especially if you transferred a lot like I did. I have like classes from various places, so that was tough. But yeah, you can finish after Christmas. A lot of them aren't due till January, or some even February. And like I said, some I tacked on the end, and those weren't even due till like March. So it just really depends. I know I like jumped around a lot in this video, but if you want a video on anything more specific, I'd be happy to do it, because this was very general. But hopefully it helped, and comment below, thumbs up, subscribe, or do none of the above. I don't really care, but I wish you the best of luck. I'm willing to help, so please shoot me a comment or whatever. I know this is very, very stressful, but you can get through it, because I did. I literally didn't think I would. Trust me. It's not impossible. So good luck, everybody, and maybe I will see you soon.